Hello. Thanks for coming to the march tonight. And by the march tonight, I mean my living room and the homes of the performers you're going to see here tonight. This is new work. Most of what you're going to see was not even dreamed of about 3 months ago, or barely so. So that's kind of a miracle, and I like to celebrate that. And then Meanwhile, without further ado, let me just introduce the first performer of the evening. Here is Lambeth Sterling.
I come from the buckle of the Bible Belt where dating is done properly. When I was 4, my first boyfriend was Fuller Beasley. Fuller always walked very high on his tiptoes. One day he peed in front of me. When I told my mother, she said, "Do not ever see him again." When I was 8, my sister was 23. She was a beauty queen and a virgin. This is my father's daughter by his first marriage, but the only sister I have, so let's get this clear. This is my half-sister. We call her my sister because she likes it. We've been doing this for a long time. Don't tell her I said so. She looked like Elizabeth Taylor, but a lot taller and thinner, with no boobs, but they had pink falsies, and those can float in the tub, so it was really kind of fun. The boys from the fraternity would sing to her by candlelight as she stood on the balcony. My father gave her the choice of having a wedding or the money. She chose the wedding and invited 500 people. At 8, in contrast to my beauty queen sister, I was really chubby. They called it pleasingly plump. I had huge buck teeth. These been filed down. I could put my thumb between the top and the bottom. I was really proud of that. Nobody said, "What we're going for here is what your sister's got going on over there." And every night my mother said, "If you take one more bite, young lady, you are going to turn into a butterball and roll down the hill." And then somebody else would say, "Here, eat some more rice and put some sugar on it." When I was in the 3rd grade, we moved to a tobacco town. In the new town, they had dresses made by a company called Peaches and Cream. My mother bought me a dress with puppies on chains on the front and an outfit that made me look very much like Robert E. Lee. Rivers Montgomery, a freckled, red-headed boy at church who unfortunately wore a Confederate uniform every Halloween, fell in love with me immediately. Rivers gave me a wrist corsage for Easter, a sterling silver heart and cross on a necklace for Christmas in the 3rd grade, and a sterling silver locket for Christmas in the 4th grade. In the 5th grade, one day when we went out for recess, I said, "Rivers," when I had a Southern accent. He turned around and I kicked him. I have no idea why I kicked him, but frankly, he does not seem completely out of character. Then I broke one of my 2 big buck teeth in the swimming pool, and the dentist put a big metal band around it at an angle. It took me 40 years to realize Rivers probably dumped me because of that tooth, and maybe the fact that I kicked him. Plus, I had pulled out a bald spot about this big on my head where there was a cowlick. My mother screamed when she found it rolling my hair on socks Saturday night before church. But I saw Rivers at midnight every year at the Christmas Eve service for the next 27 years. I didn't give up on Rivers until I was 32. We are not going to dawdle on the pathetic nature of this obsession. I still dream about rivers. The year I turned 12 was a big year for me. That was the year I found out my daddy had a gun in the top drawer of his dresser and that his first wife had been insane. I am not talking about 12-step insane. The family did not talk about the lobotomy. Thinking evidently marriage has something to do with lobotomy, I started saying to myself, I am never going to get married. To prevent vanity, I put my brother's baby blanket over my mirror. Not being able to see myself was not a great loss. People at church said every Sunday, "You look just like your daddy, honey," which was just like saying, "You look like General Schwarzkopf with Jay Leno's hair." On the way home from church every Sunday, my father would throw his arm around my shoulder and we would chant, "Left, left, left my wife and 48 kids without any hamburger, left, left," all the way home every Sunday. Across the street from the statue of the Confederate soldier in the middle of town, which was near the tobacco plant, which you could smell from my school, there was a store with beautiful little Madame Alexander dolls. I got the doll with the red hair in a wedding dress, indicating an early propensity for confusion around my goals. My friend Camille Lott had long black hair down to her waist and a chiseled face, unlike mine. Nobody told me my face wasn't chiseled, so it wasn't really bothering me. Camille said, "Why don't we take off these wedding dresses on our dolls and make some little nuns' outfits?" We were Episcopalian, not Catholic, but Catholic nuns had much prettier dresses, and I would say, "Oh, yes. Let's put our little nuns' outfits on." She was so much prettier than I was, and they were from Virginia. They had a plaque on the wall that said, "Oh, how blessed it was to be a Virginian," which really, compared to North Carolina, is very true. There was an enormous mirror over their sofa, gold gilt, over 100 years old, unlike at our house, because we kind of came from this, well, we did not come from money, but nobody knew that. Under the mirror, they had an antique sofa. It was blue velvet. We weren't allowed to sit on such things at our house. We had a whole set of towels we could just look at and not touch. We would sit on the floor and Camille would spread out gold silk scarves. This was all Camille's idea because she read Emily Bronte and Jane Eyre and how tragic it all was that everybody was burning up and everything. In Jane Eyre, the first wife is setting fires in the attic. I didn't mention the fact that I knew my daddy was going to go to hell because he had already had a divorce. And I didn't mention the fact that I knew from what I heard at school that will send you straight to hell. And I didn't mention the fact that my daddy never went to college, even though now he was a big boss downtown, or that his first wife had been insane. So I didn't say much of anything. My half-sister came up behind me when she was visiting. I was standing at my dresser. She leaned over toward the mirror and she said, "You know, my mother, she's not dead. She's alive." I didn't say that either. And Camille would just start pulling on my hair. She would just take my braid and start yanking on it because I was never the dominant force in the game. So we sewed the beautiful little black outfits with the little white and everything. Somehow my mother never did notice that my doll went from being a bride to being a nun because she was an accountant and she was very busy. This is letting her off easy. Actually, when she wasn't busy, she was screaming at me like this. She also taught charm school for secretaries. In case you didn't catch it, the most important influential part of my childhood was that my mother was mad at me pretty much all the time. Every woman I know who's really fucked up around men has a mother who's mean as a snake. But I'll tell you one good thing. She used to push me up against the wall to correct my posture and have me walking with a book on my head. I won all the book on your head races at church camp. Anyway, my mother was busy, and I was glad about that. Camille Lott and I had seen the movie The Nun Story with what's her name, the beautiful Audrey Hepburn with the short hair. She had put a nun's outfit on in the Congo, and she was in some insane asylum. And that was something, because they had these big bathtubs where they had plywood tops over the tubs with the patient's head sticking out, probably just for the movie, but it was very exciting. People were kicking and screaming. People are kicking and screaming because, well, just like my father's first wife, whom everyone does not know about. 50 people in tubs. They would all kick and scream. And I said to myself, that is what I want to do. I want to become a nun. I declared over and over again that I was going to be a nun. And sometimes, frankly, I wish I had done just that. And Camille would say, let's go down to the river. And before we do, let's wash our feet in the water. I wonder what could happen here today. I think just about anything could happen here today, don't you? Well, I do. I do think about anything could happen here today. Let's do our nails and comb our hair. Your feet look so pretty today. And before you knew it, before anybody knew it, Camille's mother did not know it, and my mother was at work. We were very pretty, very gussied up little nuns, living in a palace full of marble and having very secret sex with kings and princes. Now I can see most of you are not therapists, so let's continue. And then at dinner, Camille's mother, who did not know anything about our game, would tell us about Jesus. Her mother was very tall and very elegant, and very frequently she would like to talk to us about Jesus, which, as I think of it now, is very odd because she's one of the 2 Democrats I knew. My mother was a devout Republican like my daddy, and in the choir, and at my house we did not talk at all about Jesus. We talked a lot about grammar and charm school and what style hair looks good with what style face. And believe me, this ain't it. Mrs. Lott would say, children, I would like to speak to you about Jesus and how Jesus went down to the tomb. I would say, oh, please, Mrs. Lott, tell us about Jesus. And all the children just look at me like, if you don't shut up. We sat around an enormous antique walnut dinner table with china and real silver and 2 big silver candelabras. Dr. Dave Lott sat at the end of the table in a crisp white shirt. Always a white starched shirt. Mrs. Lott would say, Lazarus was dead. He was a good friend of Jesus, and he didn't even smell good anymore. He did not smell good anymore, and his sisters had been very distressed. Why had Jesus not come? Jesus should have come when he was called the first 3 days, but he had gone out of town. And it is just like God to be late, children. It is just like God to be very, very late. Dr. Dave would always interrupt the Bible stories. Before we hear any more about Jesus and Lazarus, I want to make sure you children understand you are not going to watch that goddamn show with that damn Colonel Clink on Hogan's Heroes anymore. That Colonel Clink is wrong. I was in the war. It is not funny. And you goddamn kids are not going to watch that goddamn show. Is that clear? Mrs. Lott would say, Dave, as I was saying, Lazarus' sisters were calling Jesus all the time, and as I have told you girls repeatedly, it is very unattractive for young ladies to call young men, but they were calling Jesus all the time. Where is Jesus? Where is Jesus? As if there were a telephone, children. There was no telephone. I'm just trying to help you see. All of you who have read the classics and Emily Bronte know there was no telephone. If there had been a telephone, we would not have had all this endless suffering about the room at the inn. Every Christmas, we have to hear about the room at the inn. Now here, I want to interrupt myself to say I think it's all right to smoke at dinner if you sit up straight. Finally, Jesus did come back. Here he comes lollygagging up the hill. And he said, "Where is Lazarus?" when he had a southern accent. Of course, Lazarus is dead, children. So they went up the hill and all the girls followed because by now, girls, I must tell you, Jesus was a very attractive man. And all the girls were so interested in Jesus. They were so interested. And as I think about it, I think this had a lot to do with Jesus' success. He was well groomed. And I think that's an important point for all you children. So they went on up the hill, and Jesus went into the tomb. He went into the tomb, which was very, very smelly, and Jesus touched Lazarus. Something happened in there. We do not know exactly what. Both Lazarus, and Jesus came out in long white robes, children, and of course sandals, and they went down the hill and they washed up for dinner. And one of the girls sat by Jesus' feet as the other one cooked. One of the girls took out her hair and started massaging Jesus' feet with her hair. She was massaging Jesus' feet for a good half hour, hour and a half. And that other girl who was doing all the cooking and cleaning started saying to herself, "Why is it I am doing all the cooking and cleaning?" And the reason I have told you this story, girls, is we are not going to have one whit of discussion about who is helping me with the dishes. Jesus wants you to do the dishes. The other reason I have told you this story, girls, I wanted to tell you, and I have told you this story. Listen up. It is not enough, young ladies, to have a man who eventually just shows up. The kind of husband you should be looking for is a man who will raise the dead, just like our Dr. Day.
Yay! Yay!
Good, Lambeth. Way to go, Lambeth.
My parents, Dave and Teresa, met at a Mexican restaurant in Ventura, California, a restaurant owned by her husband's family, Teresa's first Mexican. Yeah, she clearly has a fetish for working class brown men. Wait a second, are you sure this is okay? What if they get mad at you for saying all of this? Stop. Tell it like the sweet little love story it is. Mom is like 23 years old and in this unhappy marriage, busting her ass, waiting tables at her shitty husband's family restaurant and feeling stuck. And this handsome guy shows up. He's just quietly enjoying his food and he consistently comes into her section at the restaurant. And then he asks her out. And she said she's flattered, but she's married and she kicks herself because she thinks he's hot as fuck. It's just like that Alicia Keys song where she's the waitress at the coffee shop, making the guy the hot chocolate with the milk and cream in it because she thinks he's kind of sweet. Oh, so romantic and dreamy. Why are you so critical of them? I mean, I can't let go of the racial piece. It's kind of funny, right? Married to two Mexican men. The chisme and the gossip is juicy. They love to tease you, so go ahead and tease them for their adultery. So I wonder if part of you envies your mom because she gets to have your dad. Part of you is in love with your father, attracted to his DILF energy. It's how you say giving incest vibes, right? Yeah. Or maybe you're jealous of your mom because she accepts and loves his Mexicanness more than you can accept your own. Yeah, let's go with that. No, don't listen to her. You'd never let a real therapist talk to you like that, would you? Yeah, this isn't how you learn to talk to clients in social work school. No, listen, you envy their love story. You've grown up with a model of love at first sight, lust at first sight, messaging that love can surprise you, that you never know who you might meet. Remember the photos of them with their twinkling eyes and cute little smirks on their faces? Their obsession with each other is palpable. You've longed for that kind of connection, their kind of romance. Why has it been so hard for you? Yeah, why the fuck am I so damn cruel to myself? I'm sweet to my therapy clients. I would never in a million years talk to them the way I talk to myself. It's a product of my own mind-fucky design. If I beat you to the punch, you hurt me less. Have I really just self-sabotaged every relationship I've been in? The main red flag I have to look out for is me. I'm enough of an abuser to myself. I don't need a fucking man to do that. I'm a brilliant, abusive boyfriend all on my own. So we've been talking about Dave and Teresa, but now we need to introduce Debbie. Debbie and Dave dated prior to him meeting Teresa, but Debbie wanted to make it work with him. She hoped to get back together, have their family together. I bet she thought it would be an obvious choice. Your ex comes to you, she says she's pregnant and it's yours, and the right thing to do is to try and work it out. Okay, Dave, so you're about 30 and you find out you're going to be a father. You've met a woman you really like and things are becoming more serious. It sounds like you're at a crossroads, thinking your life would go one way and now you've been thrown a curveball. Yeah, I mean, I love Teresa. I want to be with her, build a life with her. I'm in this and I'm committed to parenthood. But you're concerned for the life your son will have. Your relationship with his mother does sound tricky. And so I wonder if this actually relates to your father and your fears of becoming him as a dad. Or maybe even disappointing your Catholic mother for having a child out of wedlock. So tell me, how does that make you feel? How the fuck do you think it makes me feel? Here you are just psychoanalyzing me like, okay, Dave, here's your life story. Here's how you fucked up. You don't know shit about me, all right? Dave tells Teresa that things with Debbie are over and he doesn't want to get back together with her. That he actually wants to be exclusive with Teresa and is ready for something more serious. Shit, that's so cold. She comes back to him, hoping for reconciliation, only for him to shut her down. Yeah, suck it, Debbie. You lost and Teresa won. But maybe he should have said yes, right? Wouldn't that be the right and upstanding thing to do? Because what will people think when he chooses this new woman over someone who's gonna have his child? Ugh. Guys, let's think about how hard it was for her to be rejected. Debbie at her most vulnerable, scared and not wanting to have this baby alone. It's just heartbreaking. She clearly was so wounded and didn't really have another way to process her feelings besides being vengeful. Once their son is born, Dave is only allowed to see him part of the time and at Debbie's house. One time, Teresa's car breaks down and she calls Dave on Debbie's landline during one of his visits. Oh, look, it's the bitch calling, Debbie says as she sees Teresa's call coming in. Meanwhile, her toddler, Anthony, is playing with Legos within earshot. Hi, can I speak to? And Debbie hangs up on Teresa. Stranded, Teresa calls Dave's father to come help her start her car. Tony, thanks so much for coming. I'm sorry to bother you. I just didn't know who else to call. No problema, Pula. Everything okay? Yeah, well, no, but it will be, just some miscommunication with Debbie. Oh, yeah, that makes sense. Well, you call me anytime, okay? I'm happy to help. And you get home safe now, I hear. Thanks, Tony, I will. See you and Inez next week for dinner. Have a good night. Then Teresa drives over to Debbie's house. Hey, look, that was not cool. This is David's time with his son. How dare you interrupt that? And she tries to close the door on Teresa, but she sticks her foot in it. Let me talk to Dave now. Dave comes out. What's going on? My car was fucking broken down, so I tried to reach you, and Debbie hung up on me. Your dad was sweet enough to come and help meet me and fix the situation, but this isn't okay, baby. I can't keep dealing with this. I'm sorry, I know, but let's stay calm. And why aren't you sticking up for me? I need you to back me up when she pulls this shit. October 1990. Teresa and Dave are expecting a baby. Anthony is going to be 6 years old in a few days, and this baby is due on his birthday. Spoiler alert, the baby comes a day early. Not only will your dad have a new baby to take care of, but she's gonna steal your birthday too. Shh. Will you let me tell this part of the story? So Teresa's laying in the hospital bed Her pale hands and manicured red nails rub her belly. She's been waiting for this day. She wanted to look nice for her baby, for her entrance into full-fledged motherhood, a baby of her own. Dave comes back into the room. That was Anthony's school. He has lice and he needs to come home. Oh, well, this is turning out to be a busy day for us in more ways than one. When my mom was pregnant, my brother was very excited to be a big brother. He was adamant about going up to my mom and talking to her belly, but not just at her stomach. He would have my mom open her mouth, tilt her head back, and he'd call out a, "Hi, baby," towards her throat, convinced this would be the fastest mode of communicating a message to his sibling on the other side. So once I was all cleaned up and my brother was rid of his lice, we had our own cute meeting. "Anthony, come meet your little sister," my dad says as he leads him to the hospital bed. My mom beaming as she holds me and leans towards my brother. "Hi, baby," Anthony says, the same voice he has for months now. And my head whips around, jolted by this familiar voice. Finally getting to see and make eye contact with this little brown boy. His toothy grin and excited face, entering a new identity of a brother. Bubba, my brother. I couldn't say Anthony as a kid, so he got stuck with that. We have the same dad, different moms, but in conversations, my brother says, "My dad," like I am not his child too, even when he's literally only speaking to me. "My dad went to the garage to get something." Well, my dad was talking about going to In-N-Out later. Yeah, my dad was a bit of a bad boy. Your mom was good. We get it. You love your daddy. There's enough daddy issues for us to share, buddy. We can both claim dad. But I get it. He was your dad first, Bubba. "Anything for the princess," sneers Debbie in reference to things like my parents dropping my brother off a little later because of soccer practice for me. Because I'm the baby. I'm the spoiled. I'm the daughter Debbie never got to have. And this all sounds familiar. I'm hearing my brother's words echo in my head. You know, they moved here for you, for the good schools, only the best for the baby. Anthony, so what I'm hearing is that you think your parents chose these schools for your sister and her education, but not you. That must have been difficult, feeling like they prioritized her over you. I wonder if you felt that way with your mom too, and your younger half brother. Like your mom had a new baby to take care of. Yeah. Soft, dark green carpet, a gray plush sectional couch, pictures of my brother and his brother of all ages on the walls. Frijoles and rice and tamales and potato salad wafting in from the kitchen into the living room, and the smell of chlorine and sunscreen coming in through the back screen door. Debbie's loud, throaty cackle as she talks to a girlfriend on her landline. "Lily, make yourself at home, okay? Feel free to use my bathroom down the hall so you don't have to use the boys." There's kind of a friendliness, a genuine nature in her voice, but is it actually safe? "You look so awkward right now. Just make yourself small on this couch. Channel that sorry I exist energy. Okay, I think she's just trying to be nice to you. You can let your guard down a little bit. I mean, I think you're safe here. No way. I don't trust this lady. She is playing head games with you for sure. Debbie would give me these gifts like nail polish, Ariel mermaid Barbie, lip smackers chapstick, things that I liked, kind of, but also didn't feel like me. The sense of her not knowing me, but possibly trying to. I think I was about 13 when she gifted me this subscription to Teen Vogue magazine, my fingers flipping through the bright glossy pages. I don't know, this might be a little too mature for you. Come on, Mom, it's harmless. It's just fashion. Okay, I just don't want it to get to your head. So, was this Debbie what she would have gotten for her daughter if she had one? Was she trying to piss off my mom? It's weird feeling this combination of rage and empathy for Debbie. I put the pieces together and I see how she warped my brother, how she created so much stress for my parents. But I also understand her pain, feeling like she was both too much and not enough, too much of a burden. I mean, both her parents were in jail. Her brother was murdered. Eventually, her husband, who was an electrician, would be electrocuted at work and die, all while she was pregnant with their unborn son, Billy, who would never get to meet his father. Billy, who now has a strained relationship with our Bubba, our brother. And I know that breaks my brother's heart. So it's just no wonder people in this family have drinking problems. Oh my God. And what's the generational impact here? What are you going to pass down to your kids? Should you even have kids? But you don't forgive her for the way she's imprinted on your brother or on this family. You don't really want to be empathic towards her, but that helps the empathy trickle down to your brother. You can't deny his generational wound. His venom that he spews, it isn't really about you. It's probably not even about him. Sure, it's about his mom, and more so it's about the injustice he experienced as a child. You can have your mommy issues, buddy. I'm good with what I got already. Thanks. So, where do we go from here, Bubba?
Hey. Hey. Hey.
"1956, we go to Disneyland for the second time because Daddy has read that they just opened an Indian village right next to the Frontier Village and right next to the Disney River, where there's this big, beautiful steamboat with real smokestacks and a whistle that blows in this fun way when we take off. It's my favorite ride at Disneyland. And when we come back, there is this tall Indian man standing on the dock, and he's all dressed with the big feather headdress, and buckskins and moccasins. He looks happy, but he's pointing toward the, I can get a point up here on the screen. He is holding his hand out toward the west as if he's happy about all the white settlers that are going to go out and steal Indian land. And there's a Knott's Berry Farm, there's another amusement park close by. And they also have an Indian dressed in very similar clothes with his hand raised to greet the visitors as they come for photos. Daddy says that though the parks say they are real Indians, that they're hired by the parks. And he says that when we go on our trip to the Midwest to visit family, we will see where real Indians do live their own life on their own land. The first place we go is the we go first to the Navajo reservation and we find the trading post because Daddy has a brand new camera and he's forgotten the manual and he's having a problem that he can't quite figure out. He goes to the photo counter and he asks the woman there if there's anyone who might help him. Yes, there is. In the next village, there's a man named Paul Wallace. He runs the gas station and he can fix anything. What do you make of that? My dad says as we're driving. Another Paul Wallace. A Navajo Paul Wallace and white Paul Wallace me. Those Scottish Wallaces sure did get around. When we get to the gas station, Navajo Paul Wallace is about as tall and I think as handsome as my daddy. And he sees that I'm the only child getting out of this car. And he comes over and says, you look very tired and probably thirsty. Go on over there to the square and you'll find a drinking fountain. I go in the direction he said, and sure enough, I see children playing my favorite game, kickball. I move faster because I hope maybe they'll let me join their game. But when they see me, they all scatter to the edges of the plaza and hide under the porches and against the buildings. I stare for a minute and then I decide to get that water. My first gulp, and I hear giggles and laughs all around me. It scares me. And I run back to the car as fast as I can and kind of look up at my mom. Nancy, you were drinking much more noisily than any Navajo child would. As we leave those children and the Paul Wallace station, we head north toward the Grand Canyon. And along the road, we start to see these signs that say Navajo crafts for sale. Mommy and Daddy say that they'll buy me a piece of jewelry if I want. So we stop and I get out of the car and I can see children about my age hiding behind these big skirts that the Navajo women are wearing. I'd like to be able to talk to them and know something about their life. But even when my parents are paying for the ring they buy me, none of those children come out of hiding. When we get to the Grand Canyon, we see an Indian who looks a lot like the ones at Disneyland and Knott's Berry Farm, and he's lifting his hand in a similar greeting. He's smiling when Mommy and I stand there for the picture that Daddy takes. But when I look up at him, I think he looks tired, and I'm not sure he's really so very happy. Is he hired, Daddy, like the Disneyland Indians? I'm sad to say it, Nancy. I'm afraid that the hotel has hired him. We move on, and we finally get to Flandreau, South Dakota, where my mom is, Aunt Josie and Uncle Mervyn live, two of my favorite of her relatives. Uncle Mervyn is a woodworker. And the last time we were here a couple of years ago, he gave me this beautiful cradle for my dolls. And Aunt Josie makes the best cookies in the whole world. The next day, we leave town to go out to a farms to visit more relatives. And as we're leaving town, I see this huge brick building, maybe 3 stories tall, with really dark little windows. And I'm trying to read the sign. Did that say Indian School, Uncle Mervyn? Yes, built in 1860, over 100 years ago. I know you think I look old, Nancy, but I'm not that old. That is the US government school that houses and educates and feeds the Indian children because they don't have many opportunities in their reservations. A couple times a year, I take over toys that I have made. Indian schools. I never hear a thing or read a thing more about Indian schools in all my school books. And I'm supposed to be in a good college prep high school, and I don't read anything in college. And worst of all, when I'm training to be a teacher, still nobody tells me about these boarding schools. I hear nothing until 2007 when I'm near Phoenix and I read that the Heard Museum there has a new exhibit called Remembering Our School Days, the Boarding School Experience. I remember Flanders, so I'm curious and I go. The minute I enter the exhibit, I'm in this dark hallway. Yes, there's some lights in the cases, but they're not very bright. Just bright enough for me to see picture after picture of big brick buildings that look just like the school in Flanders. And in front of those buildings, picture after picture, are these hundreds of Indian children in row after row after row, all of them with the same short bowl cut to their hair and the same ugly gray uniforms and very sad smiles and glass face stares at the camera. I see in every case evidence of what these children suffered. Slave-like labor, bad food, abuse. They were beat if they spoke their language to each other, and sexual abuse. Children who would disappear with no explanation, and older children asked to dig unexplained graves. I am in tears as I leave. I will never use the word Indian again. These children who suffered in government, in schools that my government made to kill their culture. These are Native Americans with a culture that we need to know about. Fast forward to 2023, and I'm in the Adirondacks, and I know that I'm on the land of the Six Nations Confederation that was the model for our Declaration of Independence that Thomas Jefferson used and respected, and for our Constitution, because he thought that they had worked out a good balance of power, like we're supposed to have with our three branches of government. And so I Google, I want to find some information, maybe a museum about this culture. The first thing that pops up on Google is forts. And I say, oh, I get it, Miss Google. We are preserving the John Wayne story of cowboys fighting Indians. So I keep Googling. Finally, I find the Six Nations Iroquois Cultural Center in Oneonta, New York, quite a few hours from where I am at Lake George. I have to admit that if Miss Google hadn't helped me, I might not have found it. It was lots of windy roads. And when I finally come to what I'm sure is Oneonta, there isn't even a town sign. And there's certainly no sign about this cultural center. I keep driving, and luckily I see a man walking. And I stop and ask him, and he says, oh yeah, you're on the right track, just keep going down the road. And I come to this long brown building right next to the road. Still, there's no sign for it. So I turn in. At the end of the building, there is a parking lot, maybe 6, 7 cars, a gravel parking lot with an outhouse on the side. No Disneyland neon sign. I get out and I walk toward the end of the building where there's unpainted steps and a screen door. And when I enter, I am in the most amazing cornucopia of Native American art and artifacts that I have ever seen at the Smithsonian, the Heard, any museum here or in Canada. there are these beautiful red, white, and green paintings on the floor. And on every doorpost and the ceiling, there are posters, handmade history posters, and pictures, and pottery, and beadwork. I am overwhelmed as I am trying to take all of it in. So I feel relieved when I hear a woman say that the founder's grandson will tell us stories, that David will tell us stories. My grandfather was really the storyteller. But as he got older and a little bit tired, he would say to me, "You can tell stories, David." And he'd leave. But I'd smell pipe smoke. My grandpa always had a pipe. And when people leave and I'd go outside, there he'd be sitting with his pipe and he'd say, "Good job, good job." My grandpa built this longhouse, Haudenosaunee log house, in the same style that the Confederation uses for all their government meetings. Grandpa was so humble, he would never have told you that. And he never would have told you about the beautiful beaded neck belt that you can see along the edge of this ceiling, 75 feet, telling the history of the Six Nations Confederation. Grandpa wouldn't tell you, he was too humble. But he would tell you that your George Washington, who you say told no lies, told nothing but lies to us Native Americans. And he stole our lands. So we call all of your presidents men who steal land. You also stole our children from your boarding schools, and you stole their language and their culture. That is why this center that my grandfather built is so amazing, because he wanted to reclaim, remember, and honor our culture. I am humbled as I leave this center and saddened to know how far it will be when I get back to California, if I ever want to get here again. I'm going to diverge for just a moment to do a bit of an activist moment. I hope that you have heard of the Native American Boarding School Coalition, NABS. You can Google NABS. They are working to get a Truth and Reconciliation Commission, government ordained, just like they have in Canada, so that we can get similar truth about the atrocities at our boarding schools. There is some hope that Biden chose Deb Haaland, a Native American, to be the head of the Department of the Interior, which oversees the BIA, Bureau of Indian Affairs. Notice they still say Indian. What a concept that a Native American might be in charge of overseeing what happens to Native American groups. And of course, Deb is working very hard with NABS to try to get Congress to pass this commission, to pass a law that we will investigate the atrocities, the genocide of our boarding schools. You can see I'm impassioned about it. I hope you'll Google NABS. Meanwhile, I am back home and I am speaking to you from the land on which I live, the land of the Pomo and the Yuki. And Disneyland and Knott's Berry Farm won't tell you, but they are on the land of the Tongva, as is the whole Los Angeles basin. And our great Grand Canyon National Park is on the land of 11 nations. They're pretty hard to say, so I may have to read them. The Havasupai, the Hopi, the Navajo, the Hualapai, the Yavapai Apache, the Zuni, and 5 Paiute nations. And Flanders in South Dakota is on Dakota Sioux land. It's time that we face reality wherever we live in the United States. We live on stolen land.
Yay. Yay.
Chastity play. Oh, the girls at work were just passing around this calendar with all of these hunky firefighters on it, and I said, "Oh, no, thank you. I am so full from my meal. I don't need any of that." And that's what God has to offer you too. Total satisfaction. I'm sitting with my fiance in what passed for premarital counseling in the Assemblies of God in 2004. It started out by taking a Scantron test, which would highlight any areas of concern. I remember questions trying to suss out abuse, conflict resolution problems, and any history of same-sex attraction. After we did the Scantron, the pastor gave us a little talk. Now, I'm not asking you for an answer to this question, but if you two are already sexually active, we're going to ask you to take a break until after the wedding, because that sexual connection is very strong. And it can tend to kind of gloss over some of the compatibility stuff we really want to iron out before the big day. Excuse me? I've been terrified my whole life of accidentally having sex. I was terrified that they would somehow know going into this meeting that we were already doing it. And now they just want us to promise we won't do it again until we're married? So they asked us to sign something saying we would abstain and be honest with our mentor couple going forward. We lasted a few months, which I think is pretty impressive if you're into that sort of thing. I mean, I don't know if you've noticed this, but evangelical Christians are a relatively sexually obsessed group. They think about it a lot. Themselves having it or not having it, others having it or not having it, sharing their masturbation habits in the guise of confession and accountability. The shame makes it spicy. Only Jesus is supposed to make you feel this good, right? Sexual gratification is a gift from God. And when we connected with our mentor couple, they seemed nice enough. She had this curly blonde hair and he had a deep voice, and they talked about this precious gift from God a lot. Exhibitionism. Now, I'm not really surprised by this preoccupation because I've been listening to these sex sermons from childhood. Well, we just went down to the Motel 6 down the street, but she wouldn't get out of the car with me. The head pastor regaling everyone with a story of how he and his wife were going to the Motel 6 to have a nooner to keep the flame alive. I said, "Babe, you have to get out of the car. I can't be going into a hotel room down the street from the church without you." But I wouldn't because I was embarrassed. She pipes up. If it's about marriage or children, sometimes the Assemblies of God lets women speak. This makes them more liberal than a lot of churches. What would they think if they saw, Rick? I know. What will they think if they saw? They have their banter down, and the parishioners crack up laughing. Voyeurism. Everyone is all up in everybody else's business. In these sex sermons, we sat and we listened to people talk about their shortcomings, and we would feel secondhand shame or maybe like a tiny bit of titillation. Rule check. The college-age discipleship program was full of these little narcs who would enforce the rules on each other. Rule check. No touching. Rule check. No time alone with the opposite sex. Rule check. Side hugs only. Rule check! Gender is binary and gay people don't exist, and this will be enforced for you whenever fucking possible. So we did this thing called giving a testimony. This is another type of sex sermon. It's when you tell about all the scary things you used to do before you got saved. And we'll discuss getting saved in a little more detail in approximately 5 to 7 minutes, depending on how my pacing is doing today. I remember one intern describing her recent fall from grace. And then we did something that only married people should do. She was testifying in front of the youth group to serve as both a cautionary tale and a testimony to God's power to heal. And I would honestly do anything to change that. And I can't go back and make a different decision. But I know I serve a God who believes in second chances. And I don't want you to go through the pain that I did. Her affair partner was one of the pastors in charge of the program, who I think eventually got in trouble for additionally plying the interns with alcohol to get them into bed. Or maybe that was a different guy. That was the one who got in trouble for the Ponzi scheme. Gosh, it's so hard to keep them all straight. There were a lot of these internship programs, I guess the free labor, you know. And all of God's rules are just to protect the preciousness of this relationship that you two share. Now, it is important to keep that relationship between you two. Recent studies have shown that pornography causes impotence. We're back in premarital counseling. In addition to listening to misinformation once a week, there was a workbook we filled out. One of the questions asked about how our parents handled conflict resolution. And my answer was just, well, they went out on the porch and sat in these green chairs for a while my dad smoked, and then they would come back inside. I didn't mention the time my dad kicked a cup across the room or my mom tried to throw the couch. Adam just said that his parents didn't have any conflicts. Now that would have been an excellent thing to actually discuss in premarital counseling, right? I still can't resolve a conflict to save my fucking life, but I digress. Sure, let's talk some more about how masturbation causes hairy palms, shall we? Well, and they justify. Now, when I say they, I'm really only speaking to my own experience of suburban, Sacramentan, evangelical culture from approximately 1992 to 2005. So your mileage may vary, but I do think it is indicative. They justify talking about sex so much by proposing that cishet, extremely married sexual expression is an example of Christ's love for the church. Married sex is a preview of the eternal delights awaiting us in heaven, which somehow don't include an orgy. And they take all this pent-up, repressed sexual energy and direct it straight at the Trinity. So eventually you have this room full of sexually repressed homophobes who are singing together in unison about how much they want Jesus to consume them, to fill them up, and to accept them in their absolute unworthiness. And the best part is, there's no gender or corporeal form in heaven. So, your homophobic daddy can finally fuck Jesus someday. No body, no homo, no problem. And this Jesus, he's described over and over again as this divine suitor who craves this intimacy with us. And we were described as these degraded, wretched beings with a literal hole that only he could fill, which brings us to the evangelical to kink pipeline. Humiliation fetish. We talked about submission a lot in the church I went to growing up. Submitting to God's will, submitting to authority, submitting to our parents, submitting to the love of Jesus, learning exactly where we fit in the hierarchy. And the hierarchy is enforced by corporal punishment. in both specific and in a broader context. It's not just beating your kids with dowels and wood and spoons, kids. It's controlling the body, what we wore, what media we consumed, what we think. Hey, Daisy Duke! I'm a sixth grader at this church summer camp where we put on a musical at the end. One of the youth counselors, a high schooler, is trying to get my attention during a game of cone ball, which is like dodgeball, but in addition to trying to send people to the hospital, you're also trying to knock over some of those little tiny cones. Daisy Duke! I'm somehow the last man standing. This never happens to me. I'm a hybrid band choir drama nerd. I'm not athletic, but today I'm in the moment. I'm actually catching the balls. I'm killing it. But I'm wearing these little white jean shorts that I bought at 579 from the mall. And they have this lace trim. And they didn't seem that short to me, but suddenly there's this high schooler calling me Daisy Duke. And then suddenly everyone is calling me Daisy Duke, even the counselors, for the duration of camp. I've been bad and I deserve to be punished, but Christian fundamentalists really buy into this thing called substitutional atonement, which is the idea that Jesus is the literal Son of God made flesh, who is then tortured to death, getting the punishment that the rest of us deserve for like rubbing one out or whatever. And then he literally went to hell for 3 days and fought the devil. And then he came back from the dead, which is when we eat ham and eggs, and then ascended back into heaven, which is a day that we don't really observe unless you go to one of those weird non-evangelical churches. And if that's the case, are you sure you're really going to heaven, Bob? Because I don't think so. Vampirism. Christian fundamentalists also believe that you have to be born again to take advantage of this substitutional atonement, which is basically just saying a specific prayer in a specific way and asking Jesus to come live in your heart so his sacrifice, his blood, covers you. And at this point, they usually culturally appropriate from Judaism, and they do this a lot. They talk about the way the blood sacrifice on the door frame during the death plague in Egypt, it covered the household, so the angel of death didn't take the firstborn son, right? So basically, you want Jesus to like knock on the door of your heart, and then you ask him inside, like, hey, yo, Jesus, have a seat. Can I get you a drink, buddy? But then he has to go back outside to like bleed on the door a little bit so nobody gets tortured forever as a punishment from his dad, who, spoiler alert, is also Jesus. It's very, I am my own grandpa, except with some doctrinal schisms and this mysterious ghost thrown in to keep things interesting. And they all love you very much, the Trinity, but Daddy can't stand the sight of you, you filthy sack of shit. He would rather throw you into an actual lake of fire than put up with your nonsense for one more moment, because that's real love, kids. Rejection fetish. Fundamentalists also believe that you can backslide, which is where, like, I guess Jesus stays at the party too late. You want to kick him out so you can go upstairs to rub one out or whatever. So you kick him out, and he's sad, and he like washes the blood off of your heart door with his tears. But then you can just get right with God again at an altar call a few months later, ask him right back inside. He's basically like this friend who's always crashing on your couch, except for when you're sick of it and you kick him out. And as long as he is on the couch, you're protected from the angel of death and or eternal damnation. And it's really easy to ask him to get back on the couch whenever you get a case of the, oh God, what if hell is real anxiety? Because he's just standing there at the door, knocking, when he's not on the aforementioned couch. I think Jesus needs some better boundaries, but I digress. Power play. However, There are also some fundamentalists who believe in something called the unforgivable sin, which is basically blaspheming the Holy Spirit, which sounds really scary, right? The only problem is no one could tell me exactly what that meant, and it was a source of intense anxiety for me growing up. My friend Nancy recently explained that her church defined it as doubting the Holy Spirit's ability to save you. So it's like, if you take a step back for a moment, look at this process with the blood and the door and the couch and the knocking and the crying, and you think to yourself, whoa, this is a lot. I don't think this dynamic is working for anyone. God is suddenly no longer omnipotent? He's suddenly not all powerful to save you from hell? The hell that he and his own son want to send you to because some folks ate an apple and lied about it in a cosmological myth a long time ago? Oh, and you are required to take this myth 100% literally. So if you doubt the power of the blood, it loses its potency. Therefore, God's omnipotence is bestowed by our belief. Jesus Christ is a fairy, like Tinkerbell. Do you remember that? Tinkerbell, she drinks the poison that Captain Hook meant for Peter Pan. It's substitutional atonement. And then Tinkerbell dies and is brought back from the dead, resurrection, by the power of people clapping if they believe in fairies. And if we stop clapping for even a moment, Jesus disappears. Oh, and that, folks, is evangelicalism in a nutshell. It's kinky as fuck, and it's a lot less fun than it could be if they would just be honest about their urges, find an appropriate outlet, and clarify the power dynamics every once in a while. But sure, just keep on clapping, you absolute freaks. It's not like you're trying to take over the government with that shit or anything.
Yay! Yay! Yay!
This is an excerpt from a piece about a dysfunctional relationship. Fire Island, August 2016. Well, maybe you should just leave me. Troy, that's not something to say lightly. This kind of shit is hard to take back. Things have been fucking horrid between Troy and me. It was only a month ago that he had me take him to the ER because he was suicidal, only to tell me the next day that he was just trying to teach me a lesson. Yeah, it's clear that things have gotten beyond the pale. Hyperdrive of chaos and toxicity engaged. Blah, 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 blah. Fuck you, Johnny. We should just break up then. Yeah, Troy. Yeah, perhaps we should. But we can't break up because what the fuck am I gonna do? I don't want to be alone. I can't be. I'm almost 30 and I've yet to meet another guy I've connected with like I have with Troy. But I need to be out of this relationship now. I wish I could just wave a wand and poof. I want to escape, but I feel so fucking trapped. How will I get out of the lease on our apartment? How will I disentangle our lives? I don't want to give up on this because I put so much into it. I don't want to have to tell my mom, my friends, my family that I couldn't make it work. I couldn't fix it, and I They'll think I'm a failure, a foolish idiot to have gotten into a relationship with an 18-year-old when I was 25. And I don't know how I'll live with myself if I leave and he does kill himself. So much embarrassment. How could I pretend to be a competent psychiatric nurse practitioner if I can't even keep my relationship together? Everyone will know that I'm a fraud, that I'm a fucking mess, that I'm just as sick as my clients, maybe even more sick. Oh, it's shame. Troy is my first relationship that's lasted more than 3 months. That's fucking pathetic. All of my friends, all of my peers have had multiple long-term relationships. Before Troy, I was convinced I was broken and unlovable. I can't go back to that. I can't stand the thought of my friends and family knowing that I'm incapable of love. Troy, I think we just need to take a break. We've gotten so toxic and it just keeps getting worse. No fucking way, Johnny. A break? Breaks are bullshit. That's just an excuse to end things without saying so. I don't want to break up though. I really do love you. I'm not taking a break. If you leave me now, no, you're leaving me for good. Troy, come on. I can't stick around in this shit. We're terrible for one another right now. Fuck you, John. You're walking out on the best thing that's ever happened to you. You're never gonna find anything as special as what we've got. What if Troy is right? What if this is as good as it gets? There's no way I'll be able to find another partner who I have so much in common with. He's the first guy I met who I felt so drawn to, so instantly in love with, who both felt the same and is into the same things. No other homos are into the Grateful Dead, psychedelic rock, taking acid at music festivals. No other gay guys play guitar and bass at all, let alone brilliantly. He's even better than I am. And I went to Berklee College of Music, for Christ's sake. If there were other fags who shredded guitar, I'd have met them. I want to be with someone who I can share these things with, these peak experiences. I don't want a basic bitch boyfriend. I want a boyfriend who plays bass. Troy, I'm sorry, I just can't. I can't anymore. I've got to go. I'm fucking unbelievable. I'm gonna go stay with Aaron and Joel for a bit. You can stay in the apartment while we figure this out. John Haupert, you're a fucking piece of shit. You're just like your dad, walking away. Walk away, shithead. Just like your dad. Oh, just like your dad, 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 just like your dad. My dad? I haven't seen my dad since I was 15. I think it's also hazy. Fort Smith, Arkansas, 2002. Nuns? Nuns, yeah. I remember being in a convent. So sad and stoic. Austere, just like his veneer, his armor, his mask. Driving down the side streets of Fort Smith in the passenger seat of your car, my eyes locked stubbornly on the road ahead, reading street signs. Suddenly, I have a notable interest in birds, in the flora and fauna, dead, barren grass. Oh, look, an armadillo, also dead. Anything to avoid having to be present in my body, in this moment, in this car. Anything to avoid connecting with you, Dad. So, John, how's school? You're in the 10th grade now? Yeah, but no one calls it that. I'm a sophomore. It's fine. Oh, okay. Well, how are you enjoying your classes? Any favorites? Music's good. I realize I'm not giving him much, but why the fuck should I? Crawling out of my skin. I haven't been alone with him in years. So fucking awkward. Though part of this is markedly familiar, just like driving in the car with mom. Terrified she's able to read my mind. Terrified she'll find out my dirty little secret. Intellectually, I know she won't care, that there won't be any negative repercussions, but that fear of rejection, excommunication, and judgment is so deeply programmed into my mainframe. Yet this feeling is far more complex. Can he tell that I'm a raging homosexual? Does gaydar work if you're that shut down? Is it harder or easier as a sodomite to decipher if your own son is also a friend of Dorothy? For most of us, true intimacy, or the risk thereof, is reasonable cause for short-circuiting, let alone for someone so perpetually numbed out, blunted, and dissociated as you, Dad. You're an android, a shell of a person. Ugh, but what does that make me? With my monotone voice and my stoic demeanor? Robots everywhere. Yes, this fear is different, more visceral, more profound. I don't want you to know because I don't want to be like you. Grappling with our likeness has been the most painful part of this whole sexuality thing. No, I won't be like you. A traitor, a liar, a poltroon, such a coward that you couldn't even come out on your own. Your wife had to coerce it out of you once she realized you were taking loads in the park. Craven, faggot, sad, weak, pathetic failure. In and out of your son's lives, no regard for our well-being. Vile backstabber, backstabbing knave, tortured miscreant, a tiresome drunk, destined for suffering and despair. What a depressing life, you boring robot, fucking skin job. I can't be like you. You're a dastard whose desertion has made me a bastard. I won't ever tell you that I'm gay because I don't want you to feel like we have anything in common. I don't want you to think that you've influenced me, not even with your genetics. I won't have you think that this makes us connected and alike. We are nothing alike. I will never be like you. I will never be the coward you are. So, how about you? Still at the men's warehouse? Oh no, I quit a while ago. I'm managing an antique shop in downtown Little Rock. Jesus Christ. Talk about a fall from grace, literally. How poetic. Extra, read all about it. Successful Southern Presbyterian preacher excommunicated for cavorting with, sodomizing the flaming organist from the Catholic Church across town. Resorts to selling suits and antiques to earn enough to pay for child support when he feels like paying child support, that is. Watch now as the sad shell of a man attempts to make conversation with his estranged son. Catch the ex-preacher sojourning in the convent with the only souls who will still pity him. Yes, Father, breeder of sinners, get thee to a nunnery. Fuck you, Johnny. You're just like your dad, walking away. You're never gonna find anything as special as what we've got. Troy really knows my Achilles heel. I need to be special. I can't have a prosaic boyfriend. I'd be bored. And what about the optics? I care far too much about how I'm perceived to stand for anything less than brilliant, sensational, exquisite. I'd rather be alone than to settle. No. Remember, I don't want to be alone. I've been alone for so long. I felt alone my whole life. It was so easy for straight people in high school. I thought I'd get better in college, but it didn't. Sure, there were more than 4 openly gay guys, but they were also vapid and shallow. In the spirit of putting myself on blast, they were also so effeminate. I can't deal with that, because of my internalized homophobia, misogyny, and toxic masculinity. The deeply ingrained messaging I got from my grandfather from growing up in Arkansas in the 90s. But also my fear of being ostracized. I can't withstand any more ridicule. I can't go back to being that terrified, self-destructing automaton. And I especially can't go back to being that despondent 14-year-old who cried himself to sleep and prayed that I wouldn't wake up in the morning. Robots everywhere. I became that cyborg to protect myself from the effusive sissy boy that got me into so much trouble, that got me bullied from every direction. I can't go back to being afraid for my life, to the fear of being gay bashed, to the fear of suicide. I won't go back. I've spent the last 15 years longing for this exact kind of storybook romance of another gay boy who's just as interesting and unique as I am, whom I'm proud to post photos of on Instagram, who I want to introduce to my friends and family. And yet, with Troy, I'm embarrassed having him around my family. So Troy, what are you excited about this school this semester? Well, Miss Haupert, I'm really loving my computer science class. Sound familiar? His discomfort around them is palpable. It's excruciating to see how dissociated he gets with my family, even after spending numerous holidays with them. He's a completely different person than when we're alone together or with good friends. I see my broken adolescent self in him when he's in these social situations. I see myself, and I see my dad. I guess I needed Troy to feel good about myself, to become more confident and hopeful, to help me come into my power. But now that's not enough. And maybe it was never enough. Have I been using him all along to convince people, no, to trick people into thinking that I'm a catch because I have such a hot, energetic, smart, interesting, talented young boyfriend? Oh, perhaps I deserve this kind of misery. Perhaps I deserve his abuse and manipulation. If I can't get out of this gracefully, I'm gonna fucking self-implode and destroy myself, him, and everything around me. I'll double down. I'll lean into the psychological warfare. I'll exploit all of his insecurities. I'll direct all the anger I have towards him, plus all the hate I have for myself. I'll unleash the entire lightning storm of rage onto him. All in hope that he'll leave on his own accord so I don't have to feel like I left him. Because I am not like my dad. I know exactly what I'd say to him. I could completely gut him. I'm like my dad, Troy. That's fucking rich coming from you. When's the last time your dad told you he loved you? Drawing a blank. Yeah, that's because he doesn't. Because your redneck daddy wanted a masculine jock for a son, not a sissy little faggot boy. And so what if I'm like my dad? If I'm like my dad, then what does that make you? Like your bipolar uncle? The one who a few months ago was holed up in a luxury Manhattan suite, blew through all of his savings, adopted a puppy who pissed and shat all over the room, and was convinced he got a publishing deal for a memoir he hadn't even written? Yeah, the apple didn't fall far from the tree now, did it, Troy? You still think we should spend thousands to adopt those two purebred Tonkinese kittens you won't stop talking about? All while you can't even finish your fucking semester? Oh, tell me again, Troy, about that six-figure salary you're going to make when you graduate and get a job at Google. I dare you. You do know that Google only hires grads who have been coding since they were like 10, not above average boys who only started in college. You're a fucking joke. And you know, I'd love trying to plan a hypothetical budget for when you graduate, if you graduate. Would this be a salary you think you're going to make? Did you ever read that study I sent to you with the very clear data that indicated that new grads from your program made an average of 80,000 a year and not the magical 250,000 you keep ranting and raving about? No, I'm sure you didn't, because that doesn't work with your fantasy, Bunky. Now, does it? Delusional much? I wonder what that article would say about a crazy little boy who can't even finish his degree because of his fragile mental state and unwillingness to go to therapy and take accountability for his life circumstances and rampant substance abuse. Yeah, but not to worry. I'm sure your rich mommy will come to your rescue just as she always does. But me, I'm fucking out. Yeah, I could fucking crush him, but I can't do that. I know I'd never forgive myself if I leave and he does kill himself. After Eric, I can't live with the thought of another. So instead, I've called upon our friends to reach out to support him. He's never been able to maintain his own friendships. I've always been the one keeping up with our friend group and making plans. I've created him and I could destroy him. I should fucking destroy him. He's a petulant little shit of a child, an ungrateful little bitch with no regard for what I've sacrificed for him these past 6 months. I've yielded and compromised over and over and over to help keep him from descending deeper into despair, to save him from his own demise. Such a selfish, spoiled, narcissistic little prick. Now, yeah. Now, I'm not even sure if I'm talking about Troy or myself. Robots everywhere.
Yay. Hey. Yay. Very much for attending our show tonight, and thank you to the performers, and may you all have a great night. Good night.